She's busy with Chloe.
Oh. All right. You're gonna have your candidates sit down there, correct?
Yes, so that they see the camera and hopefully they'll hear them better, so their back won't be to the audience.
Are you ready to go? Okay. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to open the meeting of July 3rd, the Board of Selectmen meeting. Today, we're here to interview the fire EMS chief for the, vote and possibly vote to appoint the fire EMS chief for the town of Berlin. Our first candidate is Jamie Desitel. How's that? Did I say that right?
Remind people it's not an open question session.
Yeah, we will not be accepting questions from the audience during the interviews, just to let you know. Come on up, Jamie. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Ready to get started, ladies?
Yeah.
Okay. I have the first question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience and education, and how it applies to the Berlin Fire EMS position.
So, again, my name is Jamie Desitel. I'm the current interim deputy for the Berlin Fire Department. I hold a master's degree in public administration, as well as many other degrees, many certifications through the Massachusetts Fire Academy, and happy to say, 2 days ago, I got my fire chief's accreditation status through the state, so I just got that. I've been a member of the department for approximately 5 years ago, and fell in love with the department, fell in love with the town, and have forged a lot of strong bonds, strong relationships. There's a lot of good people here. My wife is now actually wanting to start looking at property here and move because she loves it here as well. It's just been it's been a great experience to be here, and I have, as far as just me personally, I have a daughter who's in college, and a stepdaughter who's on the way to college, and another stepdaughter who will be in her sophomore year of high school. So it's pretty much in a nutshell, as it were.
All right. Okay, you want to have the next one, Lisa?
Yeah, we'll have Lisa go. We'll come up like we always do.
All right.
Berlin is a small town with a limited staff. It is vital that all department heads work together as a team to advance goals. As a strong chief, how do you view your relationship with other department heads and the town administrator?
I think to establish a good working relationship with all department heads is extremely critical. One of the things that I think could be done to foster a relationship is to have monthly meetings with all department heads, work together. Truly all the departments, whether fire, police, DPW, whatever, we're all here for the same thing. We're all here to serve the town of Berlin. So us working together, especially in times of budgeting, maybe this year it's more important for the DPW to have a sander truck than the fire department to have this kind of truck. So establishing that working relationship, helping each other out, because we're all here for the main mission.
Okay, can you speak just a little bit more? We're going to have a town administrator for the first time. Can you speak a little bit more to that relationship?
So, my experience is in Northborough. We have a town administrator and an assistant town administrator, so I've had a lot of interface with both of them working. I think if the board and the town administrator, again, work together, forge a good relationship, it can be a great team atmosphere to work for. I don't know. I don't know who the town administrator. I've heard the name, but I don't know who they are personally. But it seems like the board is supporting, the advancement of the town and trying to. I guess Berlin just needs to grow up a little bit because the town is growing so much, so we need the help. But I think it'll be. I think it'll be a great opportunity for everybody to work together. I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Go ahead.
Without using a standard canned response such as, this is the next logical career move for me, or I want to take the fire department and turn it into a world-class operation, or other such expected responses, explain to us as in much detail as possible why you want to become chief.
So, again, and I sort of touched on it with my first question, but I came over to Berlin about 5 years ago. I was asked to come over to help out initially with some fire prevention assistance, and fell in love with the town, fell in love with the department. It is just it's a great place. It's a very unique place because it's this tiny town in the midst of a very, very big area, and it's just so it's so nice to be in Berlin, to drive from the city area to drive into town. It's just beautiful downtown. So I fell in love with it. So climbing through the ranks here, I guess I've been working really hard to become a fire chief, but now being a member of this department and again, you know, falling in love with the town, really having good relationships with the members that are on the fire department, the board. I visit the town accountant almost on a daily basis right now. So, I mean, it's been such a good relationship already, and to become the chief of a department that you really care about in a town that you hope to live in eventually someday, I think would just be a really good capstone to reach.
Jamie, please share your experiences in establishing budgets within a municipal government context. Also discuss any strategies that you may have used to keep the budgets within the approved funding levels during the fiscal year.
So initially, when I was given the interim position, I was charged with reconciling last year's budget. And so I guess I was kind of thrown to the fire, if you will. And I had some limited budget experience in Northborough. But before I could even, I guess I had to reconcile the budget and learn on the fly the nuances of the budget, and everybody's budget's a little different. I can't thank the town accountant and her assistant enough. They were with me every step of the way, to the point where I think they closed the door when they saw me coming up. They didn't want me around. But I learned so much from them. I learned, it was just an incredible experience. And then taking the current FY '20 budget and trying to forecast out where we are, where we're gonna be going, and the changes from last year's budget has been really good. Some of the challenges that we had with last year's budget, we really had to put a cap on spending right off the bat, because there was spending that just we couldn't account for. There was spending that we just don't even know where the money went. We had to curtail some of the overtime. We had to curtail, make sure that we were handling emergency calls appropriately, but not bringing in too many resources to maintain that budget. So it's a tricky balance to do all that. I think we did, myself and Chief Concanon, I think we did a really good job. We didn't have any overages. We won't have to go to town meeting next year and ask for money to pay bills from this year. So I think it was a success for both of us for the first time ever really having that experience.
Thanks.
As the emergency management director, what steps would you take to prepare Berlin for a major emergency? What do you see as the major threats to public safety in Berlin?
I think education, getting the public involved with emergency management, trying to get more citizens involved with emergency management, and getting more awareness out there. And I think if we look historically at the issues that we've had over the years, the ice storms, the major snowstorms, et cetera, I think those are the things that are commonly going to affect us, you know, major power outages, et cetera. And I think if we learn from the past, look at our history of what we had for from an emergency management standpoint, and really try to make sure that we're in a good spot if those items were to happen again. There obviously, nobody knows what disaster could strike next, but I think preparedness is such an important part of that, in getting the public involved and trying to make sure that we can practice maybe with getting some shelters open, how we're going to address things, how we're going to handle things. We learned so much from the ice storm. We learned about our radio systems going down because we didn't have power. We learned about, we learned so much, and just going back and taking from those experiences and putting those forward, and maybe running some tabletop exercises for emergency situations that could occur, I think would definitely help us be better prepared.
Mine's long.
Do I need to take notes?
You might want to take notes. I'll stop every so often. Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
This town needs a true 24/7 working chief.
Yep.
To lead the department's routine operations and emergency response. We need a chief who, when the tones ring, you get on the truck, or you get in the back of the ambulance, and you take command and lead the team. First question, are you prepared and willing to do this as part of your regular duties?
Absolutely.
Second question, as chief, there's more that comes along. That was a softball one, because the expected answer was yes. If you said no, Jamie, then I'd be a little concerned. As chief, you are responsible for completing all necessary reports and paperwork, including tracking complete billing information for processing and assuring consistent receipts and timely reports to the select board through the treasurer, accountant, and town administrator. Failure to perform these duties, as we have seen, has resulted in gross lost revenues for the town. The town should not pay for old bills with new money, nor can it afford to lose out on other service revenues as advanced life services. Explain in detail the process you will follow to ensure all the paperwork is completed and provided for billing within a 2-business-day turnaround.
So you're looking for ambulance billing in 2-day turnaround?
I'm looking for everything. I'm looking for the reports when you come back from a call. I'm looking for billing so that conversations with June and Amy stop. So that you don't come back and say next year, as much as you want to, whoops, we forgot to pay a bill, can the town lend us some money? We know that's been an issue, it's been a reoccurring issue. Personally, I'd like to see it stop, so as potential chief, what are you gonna do to make it stop?
Well, as potential chief or not as potential chief, we've already started to take some steps. We recently, I'll start with the ambulance billing in particular, we had a meeting just the other day. We brought all the parties involved from the fire department, including our billing secretary, billing clerk, and we started the process of trying to understand exactly what happens when we send a bill out. We started the process of, we have another meeting scheduled. We're actually bringing our billing company in because we do have, we have a lot of holes that we have to fill in as far as the billing process goes. And we are losing a considerable amount of revenue with EMS funds that should be coming back to the town. Part of that is it was just never, ever addressed. And I think looking at 5 years ago, the number of EMS calls that we did to the number of EMS calls that we're doing today is a significant increase. And we really have to get, we have to streamline this process, making sure that we have somebody tracking this down. Our current billing company makes 2 attempts to send a bill out. And if the person doesn't respond, they write it off instantly. We need somebody on our end that's gonna track that person down. And a lot of times it's just a matter of contacting an insurance company, making a quick phone call, hey, can you help us out with your bill here? I think we can significantly, just by putting our team together, possibly, we may have to slightly expand the hours of operation on the part-time basis of the ambulance billing people to help with that. But the small amount of money that we spend doing that will make a huge increase in the revenue by tracking down the money that's still out there. We also need to do some significant education within the department itself and making sure that our people are getting as much information as you can. Obviously, the patient comes first, and we have to make sure that we transfer the patient to the hospital, take care of them. But it's part of their job to make sure that they get insurance information, phone numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a struggle for many departments, but I think it's I would think that we could probably very easily up our collection rate significantly just by working together, and just by the first simple meeting that we had, we've already come up with some good ideas. So let's see. I would have no intention of having to go to town meeting with old bills. I think if a budget is properly managed, that we shouldn't have to do that. I wasn't part of the budget before I became the interim chief, so it was truly eye-opening to see what had happened. And quite simply, a budget is probably one of the most important things, and it just needs to be managed, quite frankly. And I think it's a lot of work with a budget, but looking forward, forecasting, walking around on the apparatus floor, looking at what the needs are, trying to look at our call growth, tracking where we've been and where we're potentially going, so that we stay within that budget, I think is huge. It's I don't understand, quite frankly, why we had to go in front of the town this year to ask for more money. I can't answer to that, but I would never have any intention of ever doing that if the budget was properly managed. And the let's see, billing, repairs. You mentioned, obviously we need to. Occasionally we have some unexpected issues that occur. One of the things that I got to do with help from the board, of course, was to sit with FinCom, and we had to get a small emergency funding to fix our tanker truck when it had a catastrophic failure. But other than that, I mean, I think that we will, from this point forward, be able to deal with EMS revenue and properly deal with the budget
Thanks.
effectively and efficiently.
Okay. How would you keep the career firefighters and the call firefighters working together as a team? And how would you go about evaluating the current culture, which I know you're a part of the town and the fire department staff?
So how do we manage full-time and call? And when you say the culture of the town, of the community itself, how do you maintain that culture?
I'm talking about the current culture, I guess, of the fire
The
department.
fire department. So I think, like anything, working together, establishing good working relationships with all of our members, bringing everybody together. I honestly can't see where we're gonna have issues with our two full-time people and our on-call and per diem people. I think for the most part, we have a good culture. We have a lot of personal issues that we have to be dealt with very quickly and very sternly. But I think it's all about setting the expectation, making sure that we're guiding our people correctly, and we have to create a new culture. We have to create a culture and make sure that everybody understands why truly we're here. We're here for the citizens of the town of Berlin. We're here for the people that work and travel through this community, and that's where we really have to focus. And I think once we get a good mission statement, a good vision statement together, build some pride, I think that will naturally follow. And I think that's easily done, and we haven't had that in a very long time.
Okay.
So following on to that.
Wait a
Oh,
minute.
sorry, I skipped Lisa. Sorry, I'm confused. It's early.
We're going with.
And I'm in pants, so, it's hot out. Okay.
Name at least 3 things you would do to facilitate mutual aid relationships between Berlin, neighboring communities, and state agencies.
3 things to establish mutual aid. So I think as we sit here right now, we do have great relationships with most of our neighbors. For instance, we use Northborough for ALS a lot of times if we can't get one of our private providers. I know Bolton and Berlin, Clinton, Hudson, we all work with them right now. So obviously trying to get a better relationship is always an ongoing process. And I think one of the things that we really need to do as a small community is we need to reach out to our neighboring communities, try to do more training with them, try to do more automatic aid so that we can make sure that we're getting the proper people, apparatus to the scene of a call right off the bat with helping each other out. And that's reciprocal. Especially with the chief from Bolton being here, they're in the same boat we are. We don't have a lot of help, so fostering that relationship is just so important, and making sure that we train together, work together, is something that is going to be the key to our survival. So of the 3 things, it would be increased training, increased relationships, working together, increased long-term planning, one of the things that we were attempting to work on at one point, we had a consortium together to try to figure out what we could do with advanced life support. I think it's kind of fallen off a bit, but trying to work on that again, or bring that back, or figure what we can do to help each other further.
Your turn.
Okay, thanks. All right. Going back to Chris's question about creating culture. 2 questions
Good
again.
questions.
All right. What do you do when a member of your team directly refuses an order?
Okay.
I'll let you finish. I'll
Oh.
let you answer that one, then we'll go to the other one.
So that cannot happen, and it shall not happen. One of the things that when we're dealing with people and personnel issues is, I guess, we need to understand. Well, maybe you could expound a little bit. Are you talking an order on a fire ground? Are you talking an order? Is there any particular?
I'm talking Berlin Elementary School comes for a visit. I'm making this up on the fly. Comes to visit the Berlin Fire Department for the day, and there is a child with special needs who maybe needs a little more tender, loving care. And you ask one of your firefighters to, or any member of your team EMS, to say, hey, insert firefighter name here. Could you work a little bit more closely with insert child's name here? No, Jamie, it's not my job. You told me that I just needed to do this, so I'm not gonna do it.
If somebody tells me that it's not their job to be involved with a public relation tour or guide, or to help somebody, would take them aside, obviously not want to do that in front of anybody, and let them know that that is in fact your job, and you will do your job, and if not, then we will be talking later within a disciplinary action for refusing to be part of the department and do what you were told. Having said all that, I think in general, discipline is about changing behavior. If somebody does a severe, significant issue, it has to be dealt with swiftly. It has to be dealt with immediately, and we can't let that go. There can be no insubordination in a fire service organization. We certainly should seek to understand before being understood, if you will, and try to understand why. What is your reasoning? I mean, maybe there is an issue that we don't know about. So we definitely need to do that. But if there is just a direct disregard for an order, that cannot happen. That has to be dealt with swiftly.
So kind of building on that, how have you handled a situation of conflict with one of your colleagues?
I think using the catchphrase conflict resolution is always the best way to handle that. And truly, if there is a conflict, sitting down, talking about it, and a little bit of conflict is actually good, because sometimes it brings out what the other person is thinking. And until I sit in your chair and you sit in my chair, maybe we're not that far off, and maybe our conflict will bring to light what the actual issue is, and maybe we can resolve that issue. So being able to being an adult, being able to sit down at the table and being able to handle that and having mutual respect is not necessarily a bad thing. But we do have conflicts that we have to deal with.
Thanks.
Here's an easier one. How would you build community engagement, awareness within your department? And have you done it in the past?
So in my other job, we've very heavily on community engagement, reaching out to the community, and I think we're lacking a little bit with that here. And the fire department belongs to the community. It's truly the town of Berlin's fire department. So anything we can do to engage the public. The entire time I've been here, we've never done an open house, and to me, it's horrible. We need to bring the people in and show them what we can do. We need to be out in the schools. We need to be out in the public. We need to be out at anytime we have events in town, and we need to be reaching out to the public, talking to them, educating them, offering citizen CPR classes, offering first aid classes. Other departments have been very successful with doing like a Citizens Fire Academy. anything we can do to engage the public, bring them in, and they really need to know that, you really need to know what we can do, how we can help them, so that they feel comfortable. Anybody that lives in this town, travels through this town, or works in this town should know that we will do everything we can to assist them in any way we can.
Okay.
What actions would you take to ensure a professional workplace free of harassment? If you became aware of an inappropriate relationship between an officer and a subordinate, how would you address the issue?
So, we are mandated to do sexual harassment training, and that needs to happen. We also need to further, really need to watch what's going on within our department and make sure that we're all acting appropriately. And the minute we do find any indiscretions, it needs to be dealt with appropriately. There can be absolutely no inappropriate relationships or bullying or any of that going on within the department. We're a professional bunch. We're all adults, and we need to act in that manner. And anything that happens needs to be dealt with immediately. But again, it's all about training. It's all about understanding. It's all about working together, that teamwork, that culture. And if we do have somebody that does not have buy-in to that culture, they shouldn't be here, because they're going to ultimately hurt us.
So a little while ago, you had talked about looking at expenses. So after our meetings, other than direct requests to attend various meetings, what is your plan to attend these meetings? And how do you know which meetings to attend?
I'd like to attend as many meetings as I can, and I think that's important, especially as a new fire chief, reaching out to all of the groups within this town, at least initially, and trying to meet people that I've yet to meet, and work with them and offer support. But I would expect to be at a Board of Selectmen's meeting every single time. I would expect to be at finance. I would expect to be, as we're, it's just another few months and we'll be starting the budget process all over again. I would expect to be part of all that. And again, as I stated, trying to establish that team effort. I would want to be there. Unless you didn't want me there, then of course. But I would be honored to be there and would want to be part of that process to work together and make sure that we come out with a good solid budget with good solid plans and good relationships throughout the town.
Okay. I know you're aware of our open town meeting form of government. I don't know if you have, I don't believe you have, but maybe you have, had to defend a budget request before town meeting voters?
I have not. This year's town meeting, I did go with Chief Concanon, and I was kind of in the back, and I was ready to go if he needed me, but he did a great job and presented very well. So I've not had to stand up in front of town meeting to defend anything. I think the key is to make sure that you come armed with every possible question that could be thrown at you. Make sure you have done your homework, and truly, if you consider it an important part of what the town needs, you should have all that in place. So, but I have not had that experience.
Okay, well, that was my second question, is how would you handle something,
Yes.
which you
Being very prepared.
yeah,
Every single question that somebody could throw at you, be prepared to answer.
yeah.
And then you'll get the exact one that you didn't think about.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. As fire chief, you will be the face of the department in a small community. What will you do when the right decision is not a popular one? Everyone has an opinion as to how the fire department should be run. How do you advocate for the direction that you set or the employee that is a target?
Could you just expound on what do you mean by the employee that's a target?
There's one employee that the town seems to constantly be making complaints about, or not understanding their position, or you guys want to help me here?
Maybe if you just repeat it from the start. I
Okay.
just want to make sure I.
So, as fire chief, you will be the face of the department in a small community. What will you do when the right decision is not a popular one?
Okay.
Everyone has an opinion as to how the fire department should be run. How do you advocate for the direction that you set or the employee that is a target?
So, if I'm understanding the question, it's kind of a two-part question,
It
maybe?
is, yep.
So, I feel awful for the town if they have to look at my face as the face being in charge of the fire department, but, I think, being a fire chief, you're gonna have to make a lot of unpopular decisions. But I think as long as you're making the decision, based on what is best for the department, best for the community, always thinking about the big picture, always thinking of out here versus in here, that I can live with that. And in making sure that when you have to make a bad decision like that you reach out to some people within the town, reach out to the board, reach out to police chief, other people that maybe have had to make some unpopular decisions, and just, you know, run it by somebody, let people know, work together. As far as dealing with a person, if we truly have a problem employee, or if we have the perception of a problem employee or we have a problem employee, we have to deal with the problem employee. If it's just public perception, then let's change that perception and let's figure out why they're perceiving that, and what it is that is causing that to happen. So I guess there's kind of two parts to that. I mean, if we have somebody that's an issue, we need to deal with them. If it's just somebody that's making decisions and they're unpopular decisions, or it's perceived that they're, whatever the issue is, let's change that perception through education.
Okay. And how would you educate? What would you do to educate?
So, I guess kind of painting with a broad brush here, depending on what the perception is going out and trying to educate the people that have those issues and make them first of all, understand their concerns, and then try to educate them as to why maybe we had to do this. Or I can't even think about, trying to think of a good explanation, but again, it's education, working together, and making sure people understand why we had to make why this perception may be the way it is. If it's truly just how people are perceiving things, then I think we can try to educate the people why we have to do or go in a certain way, or why something's being handled in a certain way. Again, if it's an actual problem employee, we need to deal with that. So, did that?
Yep, I
Did
think
it
so.
get, okay.
I know. It was a hard question.
That's-
What challenges do you see facing the Berlin Fire Department over the coming year?
Staffing. We are really hurting with people. It is getting harder and harder to, and if you look nationally across the country, read any of the trade magazines, any articles, call and volunteer firefighters are declining rapidly, and it's really hard. Our call volume's increasing every day. What firefighters and EMTs have to do to maintain their certifications and training is more and more every year. So we are very challenged, and the trick is going to be trying to maintain that, trying to find ways to get people involved and maintain, because what we have for a call department is a great department, and we just need to see how we can continue to foster that and get people involved, and it's a juggling act. But that's it. Sorry.
Do you think that we wouldn't have an issue if we moved away from call and went to full-time, 3
So,
shifts?
I guess that would be up to the townspeople, and that would be up to the board. Certainly, it would help. But if you kind of roughly think about, it's $100,000 for a full-time employee, that's a huge impact to the budget, and is the town willing to do that? If that's what the town wants, then certainly we can do that. But if one of the uniquenesses to Berlin is we have people from outside of Berlin that want to join our department, and one of the things that I think could solve our problem is kind of embracing the per diem aspect. And if you look at some of the other area departments, not area departments, but other departments that are similar to us, they've had great success with bringing per diem people in to help augment the call department without having to take that huge budget hit of hiring a completely full-time department. So I think we need to, I think one of the things that really needs to happen here is we all need to get together and we need to really look forward and figure out really what does the town want? What do the people in the community expect from their fire department? What are they willing to pay for, and how can we keep a good budget so people can afford to live in this town while offering the best service possible? So I think it's I don't think we need to run right out and hire a whole bunch of full-time people. I think there's ways that we can attempt to bolster what we have and make it a little better before we go that route. But again, obviously, if the Board of Selectmen directed me to investigate that, then obviously, we could do that. But
Well, let's expand on that. So instead of us saying, hey, Jamie, we want you to go blah, 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 what would you do to engage the town to say, here's some options, we'd like your feedback, so that if we do, then you can say you have, therefore. I mean, so how would you pull people in to get their opinion? Because as Lisa had mentioned, or Chris had mentioned, the town can be very opinionated at times, some good, some bad.
and as they should. I mean, it's their town. I think one of the things that's really really nice about Berlin is the coffee hour, and I think that's a great format to educate people as to where we are, into what we can do and the problems and the challenges that we're having, and the person that has the opinion way over here and the person that has the opinion way over here, I would want to bring those two people in and sit down at the table and share with me your opinions, share with me what you think, share with me what you want, and let's work together and let's try to figure out how we can. Our main goal is to serve the community and to take care of what we got to take care of. So how do we do that? And if we have the left and the right and we can all kind of work together and join in the middle, I think that's that would be a very positive way of handling it and getting as much community involvement as possible.
You can borrow my coffee talk idea, I'll share.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
That's a great thing.
It's fun. Okay.
So knowing what you know about the town and the Berlin Fire Department, based on that, what are the top 3 actions you would take in your first 100 days?
I would want to get the department together. We have some immense challenges to overcome right now, and we need to bring everybody together. We need to get a meeting of our department together. We need to reach out to all the people that are on this department and just kind of regroup and figure out where we're at, where we're headed. Make sure that the people of this department, that we're meeting their needs and that they're doing okay. The part of that is the department needs to set the expectations of the department, and we need to get their expectations of what they want from the department. That coupled with, we have to just get this department organized and back on track. We have no formal standard operating guidelines. We have a set of rules and regulations that I think was borrowed from another community and just cut and pasted, that they're so inadequate. So we need to just restructure SOGs, rules, regulations, getting the people together and figuring out where we're gonna go and how we're gonna handle that. So it's those 3 things right there, just establishing standard operating guidelines, so we have we can educate people as to what the best practices should be of the town and rules to follow. Our current rules don't address half the things that we have to deal with right now. So I think it's all organizational, getting people together initially, and that would probably be within the first 100 days. That would be a big task, but it definitely something would have to be done right away.
Okay. Do you have any other
I
questions?
actually, you would be a first-time fire chief.
Correct.
I'm aware there's a mentoring program that's available.
There is.
Would that be, is that something you're familiar with, and is that something that you would take advantage of?
The Fire Chiefs of Massachusetts has a mentoring program. They would be on my speed dial. This would be my first fire chief's job, and hopefully my last. I think anybody that takes a job for the first time and doesn't reach out and ask for help, you're just asking for problems. There's a lot of help out there. Over the last couple of years, I've established a great relationship with the police chief, and I mean, he would be somebody that I would reach out to. Obviously, FCAM, the fire chiefs of Massachusetts, I'd reach out to them. There's other area fire chiefs that have been through, similar situations that we have. I mean, why wouldn't you reach out to them? I mean, get all the help you can get.
So I have a follow-on question to Chris's question and to your statement, where you had said that one of the things that you do would be to check in with folks, see expectations, and that you found that there's no formal guidelines, no standard operating guidelines. You said you've been here for 5 years. Why haven't you done anything to address this?
I've asked many times, and it was never a priority to people above me in my position. And right now, as we speak, there is probably 4 or 5 fire departments from the area. Their SOGs are on our shared drive, and I've been asking for us to get some people together, creating a committee, and get those going. And it just was never looked upon favorably. So I don't know why it was never looked on favorably, but it was just never. I guess I was never given the go-ahead to start that process, and I think it would have helped. I think it would have helped us a lot had we done that a long time ago.
Okay. Ladies, have we covered everything we want to cover? One more? Okay.
I came prepared with like 2 sheets.
All right.
All right. And you guys have picked off a bunch of them. All right. So earlier you had talked about team efforts, working relationships. So will you be taking an active role in performing inspections in the town, and/or what are your plans to train the staff and ensure that there are more available resources to perform these duties?
So I definitely, as our town grows, we have challenges with meeting all of the inspections. And I know there's some inspections that we're struggling to get to right now, and there's no reason why we can't expand to our career folks that work here now, to our per diem folks, encourage people to get the inspections, certifications, and training. It's really not that hard, and all of our staff should be doing inspections. The fire marshal is constantly dealing with the immense new construction, so we should be doing everything we can to help him and to make sure the inspections that he can't get to, that we're getting to. And that's definitely something that would need to get addressed.
So encourage or mandate?
Mandate.
Okay.
We would need to mandate people. I mean, every other fire department that's out there that I know of, firefighters go out and do fire inspections, so I can't see why. And when you look at Mass General Law 148, the fire chief is responsible for inspections, and he or she can deem anybody to go out and do those inspections, or working under that format. So any member of the fire department properly trained can go and do an inspection.
How do you get them trained?
Very simply, you can do the very basic fire prevention classes completely online, and then there through the Mass Fire Academy is the Fire Inspector 1, Fire Inspector 2, and there is there's a group of just like FCAM, there's FPAM, which is the Fire Prevention Association of Massachusetts. There's just a ton of help out there to get people up and running.
Okay.
You good?
No, good.
Okay. Are there any questions that you have for the board?
I don't have any questions.
Or anything you'd like to add that maybe you didn't cover?
I'm sure there's a lot of things that I'd like to add. I want to make sure that you've asked me any questions that you want to. I'm an open book, and I want you to. I will answer anything. I have nothing to hide or nothing that I won't answer. So I want to make sure that you feel comfortable. But I want to just take a second to thank the board. You gave me an incredible opportunity when you suggested that I be the interim deputy chief. It was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me, and the experience that I got and working with the budget and being put in that role was just amazing. I feel like I should pay you for that. But
That's illegal.
It was just a great experience, and I just can't thank you enough for the day that we went for the interim job, that you supported that, and that was great, and it's really, I think it's helped me tremendously, so I did want to thank that, and being able to go through the process to this point, going through the assessment center, the interviews, it was a great experience, so thank you. But I don't have
Thank you
any,
for everything you've done for Berlin.
unless you have any questions that you want to ask me, I'll answer anything.
Go ahead. Do you have any?
No, I don't.
All right.
I'm good.
Tell us about your management and leadership style. Are you the helicopter boss? Are you the hands-off boss? I mean, because yes, you've been put in a leadership role, and it's only been for a few months. So here's an opportunity where you're going to be the guy. So what is your management style? And when you answer that, I've got a follow-on question for you, of course.
So, my management style
Mhm.
in one word would be empowerment. Empowering the people within the organization, giving them responsibility, giving them buy-in. I think one of the best parts of an organization is when you truly are part of it and you have an integral part of it. You truly feel like you belong there, and to give everybody, a little piece of the real estate, if you will, so that they feel like they're an important part of the organization, as they are, I think is huge. I'm not a helicopter boss by any means. I like the catchphrase, leadership by walking around, meaning getting up from your chair once in a while, seeing what's going on out in the apparatus floor, seeing what's going on calls, and being there to support them, educate them, help them along. I truly believe that when you have an actual emergency incident, the fire chief doesn't necessarily need to take command of that incident all the time. If there's somebody that's trying to climb through the ranks and work, let them run the incident if it's appropriate to do so, and offer them help and support. And one of the things that Chief Concanon and I did, that again, it's never really been done here in Berlin, is when we got the interim positions, we established a committee to build the new fire truck that we're building. And we've been pretty much hands-off, and that committee has done an amazing job working together, researching, figuring out what they need, and we haven't been hovering over them every once in a while. We kind of steer the ship a little bit maybe, but the people on that committee never had the chance to do that, and now they're doing that, and it's just smile from ear to ear that they're getting that opportunity. There's a couple other members that are researching the money that we got for self-contained breathing apparatus. Again, they're doing that, and they're learning, and they're a valuable part of the organization, and they're getting that opportunity, and it's and I think that's how I would want to run my department. Not my department. I would want to run the department. By doing that, encouraging people to take active roles, encouraging people. The fire chief doesn't need to do every single thing. Everybody in the organization should take some ownership, some pride, and be part of it.
All right, last question, promise. So after the interview, I'm gonna walk downstairs, and I'm gonna find two people, random people, and I'm gonna ask them, tell me about Jamie.
Okay.
What are they gonna tell me? And you can't go down and tell them I'm coming.
People that I know,
People that are working downstairs.
they are going to tell you that I am the best thing ever.
All right, I'm writing that down, best thing ever, okay.
I'm a very, my glass isn't half full, my glass is always 3/4 full, I guess. I'm a very positive person. I think I'm a very caring person. I love life, enjoy what I do. I love this job. I would think that pretty much anybody that truly knows me will give you that same feedback, and know that I would be always willing to help somebody.
Okay. And you can't go down and tell them I'm coming either, so, just saying. Mhm.
Are you coming to talk to me?
I said two random people, you never know. Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So just remember, we'll have to ask the questions
Yes, yes.
similarly if you got them.
Yes, I did. Well, you had covered about, you had
Yeah.
taken some off the list and Lisa had taken some off the list and others I smushed, so we're all good.
Okay.
Do we want to take a break?
Yeah, I want to take a break for a couple minutes.
Few minute break?
Turn that off for a second. All right, we're going to continue with our interviews. I'd like to introduce Fred Mitchell. And Fred, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience in education, and how it applies to the Berlin Fire EMS position?
Well, my name is Fred Mitchell. I'm 52 years old. I come from, grew up in Cumberland, Rhode Island. I graduated high school there. Spent 30 plus years in the fire service in Cumberland. It was broken up into 4 autonomous fire districts for a very long time. I worked in the North Cumberland Fire District for most of my career. I did start in Cumberland Hill as a call firefighter. I've been doing this since I've been 16 years old. My dad was a career firefighter in Cumberland Hill Fire District. Towards 2010, the town did a study to merge the 4 autonomous fire districts into 1 autonomous fire district. And then that happened in just November 2014. But prior to the merger, the last few years, my chief of the North Cumberland Fire District was also the chief in Valley Falls, and him and I were shared services between the 2 districts, between Valley Falls and North Cumberland, because we knew the merger was coming and it made no sense when North Cumberland lost our chief, who relocated outside the area. The chief down in Valley Falls needed a deputy because he retired instead of, so we kind of did the shared services, managed 2 autonomous fire districts, 2 separate budgets and what, so. So that was interesting for the last few years, and they merged 4 autonomous fire districts in 2014. So, and still with some growing pains, as, you took basically 4, we all ran automatic aid together. So when there was a fire in town, we all were there, but there was still different budgets, different pay scales, different standard operating guidelines, because each district was different with the demographics and the target hazards that each district had. So, and then I took a job in Georgetown 3.5 years ago. I've been up there as the fire chief. Combination department. We basically used per diem staffing, but we hired 4 full-timers that have started. So because we're, the challenges of the fire service with the on-call departments is time. The commitment, time, we basically, when someone knocks on the door and says they want to become a member of the fire department, you basically ask them to give up a year of their life between coming on board, going to EMT school, going to firefighter level 1, 2 training. So depending what they have with their life, their careers, it's a big commitment. So there are a lot of challenges. But basically my career has been in the combination departments. And going through a lot of changes and seen a lot of changes as well. As I said, I was 52 years old, came from Cumberland. I have 3 children, fully grown, Stephanie, Christopher, and Michael. Very proud of them. It's my biggest accomplishment. And I have a very supportive wife who puts up with not only the fire service, but also my personal interests as well. But she's very supportive of me, so very fortunate of that.
What's the size of Georgetown?
12 square miles, almost 9,000 people, with 2 major routes going through it, 133 and 97, and about, if you take both sides of the highway, we got about 10 miles of 95.
Okay, thanks.
You know,
Next question is Lisa.
Okay. Berlin is a small town with a limited staff. It is vital that all department heads work together as a team to advance goals. As a strong chief, how do you view your relationship with other department heads and the town administrator?
Well, I think it's important to have a good working relationship with all department heads. And to even take it one step further, that includes the people in town hall, in the finance department, town clerk, assessors, because it's all part of it. When you sit at that table every month, you're part of a team, and we all, and what we're there for is to basically, do what's best for the town, manage the department, but also do what's best for the town. So I think it's important to have those strong relationships, because when you have to have a conversation, it's a lot easier to have that conversation when you build a relationship with someone. You know, especially if you look at police and fire as a prime example. They're both out in the street, they're both at the call. So you gotta have a good working relationship, not only from the top, but also down to the boots on the ground, so to speak. Same thing with DPW, plays an integral part at times in your operation and your responses, depending what you're responding to. And, you know, when you're dealing with the budget, you wanna go to the finance people, you know? So when you're looking at different things in the budget, as you're monitoring the budget, you wanna make sure your numbers are right with their numbers, so. And then, you know, town administrator oversees the day-to-day operations of the town. So you wanna have that good working relationship that you know when you have to, address something with the town administrator, you know, that door's open.
Okay, do you work with the town administrator
Yes.
currently?
Yep,
Okay, because I'm sure you probably know we're having our first one is starting on July 15th.
yes, yep.
So that'll be a very new
Yep.
thing for the town.
Yeah, I work closely with the town administrator. Town administrator, you know, is the day-to-day voice of the Board of Selectmen. So my town administrator knows exactly what's going on in the department, if there's any issues, and, you know, just day-to-day operational stuff. And my board gets, my Board of Selectmen, along with town administrator, get a monthly report from me. Just kind of, you know, how many calls we did, any highlighted calls, and, you know, what the department's doing, whether it be myself or members, and then just basically, I keep them abreast of any breakdowns with the apparatus or any, projects that we have ongoing, or just thoughts in general, moving forward.
Peg?
Without using a standard canned response such as, this is the next logical career move, I wanna take the fire department, move it into a world-class organization, other such expected responses. Tell us why you wanna become chief here in Berlin.
Well, I think it's a good, you know, you look at the fit. Like I said, I've gone through a lot in my career. I've seen a lot of things change. I went, you know, into a fire district as a call firefighter that did 400 runs a year. When I moved to North Cumberland, and before the merger, we were doing 1,300. So I've seen the changes of a larger call staff shrink over time, and the addition of career staffing being added because we had no choice. I also went through a change of a merger, so I'm very familiar with the merging process because back in 2010, I sat in a meeting in Town Hall in the mayor's office with a consultant as one of the chief officers of the town. So I kind of bring that to the table because that was a hot topic for a long time in that town, was merging of the fire districts. It was blue ribbon committees through my careers, and it all stopped at the tax rate. So I kind of bring that to the table. And also, from a standpoint is that my goal, you know, is to, I look at the challenge and the goal is balancing both, you know, a career staff, but a combination staff, you know, and trying to maintain that. So I kind of look at that from that standpoint is bringing it to the table. I just think that there'll always be in the small towns a place for the call firefighter, for that part-time firefighter. And also, but you need to be able to balance that with some career staffing because you have programs that you have to maintain. You know, the fire department is just not about responses. There's fire prevention programs, there's EMS programs, there's community programs. It's very difficult to have part-time or an on-call person who has a career and a family to try to manage those programs. And I think that's a big part that people don't really have an understanding in the public that, you know, it takes a lot to manage the fire prevention program because there's so many facets of it. And the same thing with EMS because EMS is always changing, you know, so it takes somebody to really, you know, focus totally on EMS as a collateral duty.
Thank you.
Please share your experiences in establishing budgets within a municipal government context, and also discuss any strategies that you may have used to keep the budgets within the approved funding levels during the fiscal year.
I basically put two budgets together. Prior to going to Georgetown, I was also was responsible for part of the budget, you know, apparatus maintenance, and also managing the training program and fire prevention as well. But when I went to Georgetown, I put the whole budget together, and basically it's you gotta manage the budget. You just can't look at it once in a while. You've gotta be able to, you gotta be in it fairly regular, just about daily, you need to look at it, because things change, unexpected things change. It's basically a balancing act, moving funds from within one line item to another, and, also keep monitoring your personnel costs, because, and it's difficult because this is a labor-intensive job. It takes manpower. If you don't have the proper manpower on the trucks are no good to you, the equipment's no good to you. So it's tough you've gotta be able to kind of balance that, and it's a challenge, at times. When you look at your budget, the two biggest crapshoots is personnel costs, because nobody can you can look at your trends over the prior years when you put it together and say, well, if we're increasing our runs by 5% a year over the last 3 years, so you may wanna increase your personnel cost by about 5%, because that's kind of the trend. But nothing says you don't have a year where it goes to 10%. So it's a balancing act. And then the other thing too is apparatus costs. If you have a maintenance program which you can fully manage, it's the breakdown. It's that unexpected breakdown that becomes the crapshoot. So from a standpoint, it is a challenge. And on the other side of the budget is you got your ambulance budget as well. Again, there's personnel costs built into it, but also at the same time is your responses. If you're seeing again that if you're doing 400 transports a year and that's pretty consistent, you can figure that. But if it's that 1 year where you drop back, now it's going to put a drain on your budget, because your funding is not going to be what it was, what you planned on it. So it's definitely a challenge, and you have to basically, like I said, be in it just about every day and monitoring it.
Okay, thank you.
As the emergency management director, what steps would you take to prepare Berlin for a major emergency? What do you see as the major threats to public safety in Berlin?
Well, I think, from a standpoint is you got to look at your active shooter. That's kind of across the board, and regardless of what community you're in, large or small. I also think you got to look at, your storms. I think the weather, my wife, I drive her nuts because I always monitor the weather. And because I like doing, my personal interests are outside, so I'm always monitoring the weather, and I don't like winter. But you always monitor the weather, because you've got to know, what you're up against. So if you know these storms are coming, and they're saying that our weather is changing up in New England, we're getting hit with more serious storms than we did in the past. So, and more ice storms, and where you're gonna be dealing with power outages. So you've gotta make sure you have the resources in place, your shelters, your portable equipment, and you also gotta know your community and people that have needs within the community. Medical needs, portable oxygen that they're on constantly, or anything that requires electricity or power, that you gotta be able to meet those needs and have those fallout shelters. So coming in would be identifying where these shelters are and getting a good grasp of what the resources are, and then kind of plan from there. And as far as the active shooter, that's where it goes back to having a strong relationship with the police, because it's a multiple agency response. It's a unified command response. So having those relationships builds in, and making sure our people are prepared on the training side as well.
Our town needs a true 24/7 working chief to lead the department's routine operations and the emergency responses. We need a chief who, when the tones go off, you're in the truck, you're in the back of the ambulance. You take command and you lead the team. Is this something that you're willing to do as part of your regular duties?
Best part of the job.
Follow-on question to that. And as I said to the other candidate, that was a wicked softball. I'm gonna lob it just
All right.
right, like it's Wimbledon time.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I was just tossing it to
Yeah.
you. All right. So as chief, you are responsible for completing all the necessary reports and the paperwork, including tracking of complete billing for processing, assuring consistent receipts, timely reports to the select board through the treasurer and the accountant and our town administrator. Unfortunately, we've had issues in the past which has resulted in gross lost revenue for the town. The town, and we've also had instances where the town should not pay for old bills from a previous fiscal year with new fiscal year money. Can't afford, nor can we afford to lose out on other services such as ALS billing.
Mm-hmm.
Please explain in detail the process you will follow to ensure all the paperwork is completed and provided for billing within a timely manner, which is 2 business days.
Well, I think you gotta come up with a procedure, and that procedure becomes, and then you hold people accountable for it. Coming in and not knowing how things were done in the past is evaluating that, and then developing a procedure where there's checks and balances. Because it's municipal funds, and and if you look at like the ALS receipts, I mean, that's funding, part of you need to be able to pay for those services. So, I mean, because you're contracting out, so you've got to be able to manage your receipts coming in on the billing end so you're sure you're able to afford that. It's basically at the end of the day balancing the budget. But I think the biggest thing is you got to have a procedure, and with that procedure, we'll basically have checks and balances and accountability. So you can go back and look at if there's a question, you can backtrack it and follow it back to what happened to it if in fact it went awry.
Thank you.
Okay. How would you help to keep the career firefighters and the call firefighters working together as a team? And how would you go about evaluating the current culture of the town and the fire department staff?
I think, when you go out into an emergency incident and people have turnout gear on and different color helmets, you can't tell if that's a career officer or a career firefighter. It's a team. You all get trained the same way. The career guys don't get trained any differently than a call firefighter when they go to the academy. It's just different schedules. They go at night, and where a career guy goes Monday through Friday. So I think from that standpoint it's in departments, everybody brings something to the table, and that's what I promote. It doesn't matter whether you're a career guy or a qualified part-time. We all bring something to the table, and that's how you build a team. You utilize your resources. As far as that goes, from a standpoint of the culture, coming in, it's kind of just step back and take a look at how the operation runs, and just kind of evaluate. Start learning. You got to learn multiple facets. You've got to learn, how the department operates. You got to learn the members individually, how they operate, and also, how the town operates as a whole. And you'll see when you step back and watch how the department operates, and then you start learning the members collectively in groups, but also collectively individually. You kind of start developing, how the department culture is in the department.
Thank you.
Name at least 3 things you would do to facilitate mutual aid relationships between Berlin, neighboring communities, and state agencies.
I think on the neighboring communities is ensuring that the mutual aid agreements are solid. We can't do this alone. No department's self-sufficient. You've got to, especially in the smaller communities, you've got to rely on each other because of limited staffing. The other thing I would look at is automatic aid agreements, because as I just alluded to, you can't do this alone. And I think building strong relationships. I'm sure the town of Berlin has strong relationships with their neighboring communities. So just to ensure that those are intact and also continue to build on them. From the state side is just, making sure that the resources that we need, we have good, strong working relationships with them, and also strong mutual aid, so that when we need it, it's coming.
Chris had talked about creating a culture, a good culture. So 2-part question, and I'll give you the same example that I gave to Jamie when I asked this question. So the question was, what do you do when a member of your team directly refuses one of your orders?
Mhm.
So he asked me to expand upon that. So I made something up. Berlin Elementary School comes over for its fire day. there's a child with special needs, needs a little bit more love and attention.
Mhm.
You go to insert fire person name and say, hey, I need you to stick closely to insert child, show him or her the ropes, ask questions, be kind, be patient. Person turns around to you and says, don't think so, Fred, not part of my job. What's your response?
It's a direct order. Anytime an officer, requests something or gives something, it's an order. I mean, it should be assumed that it's an order. And at that point, it's discipline process. You have to, because if a member is not willing to, follow through on an order or refuse an order in a controlled atmosphere, that's only gonna trickle out to the emergency scene. And then what? Then you see one member gets away with it, and it has a negative effect on the organization as a whole. Then it becomes a free-for-all. Because you've gotta have discipline. The fire service is a paramilitary organization. So when an officer gives you an order, you follow through on it. And on the emergency ground, when a crew's given an order, if they don't follow through, or they can't follow through on it for whatever reason, they need to notify the incident commander of it. Because these are the challenges we weren't able to overcome. Or for whatever reason, the team was compromised, there was an injury, or whatever the case may be. But using that scenario, that's the person that's written up for that. It's progressive discipline.
So part two for that is, can you describe a situation where you've had a conflict with one of your colleagues and what you've done to resolve it?
Well, I mean, conflict is, you don't have a discussion out in open when you have a conflict with anyone, a subordinate or a colleague. That's done behind a closed door, and you basically work through the conflict. You get their side of it, you understand where they're coming from, and then you relay through your side of it. But at the end of the day, the chief's the boss, and it's up to someone to adjust to that. One thing I've always said, when someone comes into my office, they may not agree with my decision, but I want them to at least walk out and say they were heard. That that they know that I heard them, and that I based my decision on what I thought was best for the department.
Great, thank you.
Okay. How would you build community engagement, awareness within your department? How have you done this in the past?
Well, I think getting the fire department, in any community is one of the leaders of the community. The department itself is there. Anytime the bell tips, someone's having an emergency, so we respond to help them. Community-wise is through promoting. It's like a marketing program through open house, doing an open house during fire prevention or within that fall season, promoting the department that way, using social media, Facebook, Twitter accounts, websites, getting messages out there certain times of the year. Like right now it's fireworks, getting a message promoting, the illegal use of fireworks and, just using that. Also grilling, we're in grilling season, getting messages out, using public access, as far as, whether it be a 5-minute, blurb, promoting an open house, or, a safety message to just an advertisement on the screen when public access is not on, that, certain things come across the screen where, the fire department, wants to remind everybody, change your batteries in October, when we change the clocks as an example. So, and also visiting the civic groups, the seniors, any civic groups in town, just saying hello and getting the messages out. It's being out in the community.
Okay, thank you.
What actions would you take to ensure a professional workplace free of harassment? If you became aware of an inappropriate relationship between an officer and a subordinate, how would you address the issue?
I'd investigate it right away. an investigation would take place, and if I had to, depending on the severity, I'd put both of them out on an administrative leave until we come to a conclusion on it. It shouldn't be tolerated whatsoever. Because if you end up not addressing it, it's just gonna snowball. And again, you don't have that order within the department.
We have a lot of volunteer groups that meet
Mhm.
at night, and generally fire will attend. So these after-hour meetings, other than direct requests to attend these meetings, what's your plan to attend them, and how do you know which ones to go to?
Well, I think when you come in new, you make yourself available to attend, at least attend all of them to introduce yourself. I mean, there's certain meetings that you should attend fairly regularly. One of them's the selectmen, and just groups that you're gonna. There's certain groups in a community you're gonna have a lot more interaction with than others, and I think the ones that you have a lot of interaction, you're gonna be heavily involved. But you also need the ones you not so much. You need to make an appearance, so to speak, every so often to keep abreast of what's going on. So I think it's more of a managing of your schedule, and kind of prioritizing which meetings you need to be on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, and on a yearly basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What experiences have you had with the open town meeting form of governance? And have you had to defend a budget request before town meeting voters?
Open town meeting for the last 3.5 years. I've not really had to defend any budget request. I always present the ambulance budget every year. And also, I've had a couple of questions where we proposed a capital improvement item. I answered them. There was a couple of questions for a resident, but there's not really been any, since I've been doing that, any, questions as far as the budget or goes like that yet. I can tell you in the fire district meetings were pretty interesting over the years, but at the time I was deputy chief and I just really didn't sit. I was always in the back because the chief was, but I did have to assist him one year, just kind of from the back seat, so to speak, raise my hand and say, well, just to follow up on a resident's question, because he was, the chief was going, there was kind of a debate back and forth, and I just kind of had to support my boss, I had my 2 cents.
So you would feel comfortable?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, the chief's job is to promote the department.
Yeah.
And also defend the budget. If as an example, if somebody's questioning, excuse me, the training budget, to get up there and defend it and say, we gotta train our people. Just, it's like the EMT. It's a license, it's continuing ed to renew your license. If you don't do it, your license drops. Your firefighter level 1 and 2 is a certification, but you still have to redefine your skills and practice your skills, because if you don't use the skills, you're gonna forget them, or you're not gonna be as proficient as you need to be, as an example. So getting up there to defend, we're insurance policy. That's what the fire department is. You pay your taxes. You hope you never need them, but when you need them, they're there.
Thank you.
As fire chief, you will be the face of the department in a small community. What will you do when the right decision is not a popular one? Everyone has an opinion as to how the fire department should be run. How do you advocate for the direction that you set or the employee that is a target?
That's leadership. Leadership is doing the right thing, and doing the right thing is not always the popular thing. And just defending it. Don't be afraid to step up and say, this is the direction we need to go, and these are the reasons why. I kind of use the analogy is, take any sporting event, whether you're there in person watching it or watching it on TV. We don't always know what's going on. We're watching the same game, but the people that are deeply involved in the middle of it have a different view of that same game that someone from the outside's watching. It's no different with the department. you have, in these roles, you're gonna make tough decisions. People don't always agree with those tough decisions, but they may not have all the facts. So as being a leader, you present all those facts. You know, you use your experiences, you use your education, your knowledge, and your best practices to lead. And you base that off your decisions, using that.
What challenges do you see facing the Berlin Fire Department over the coming year?
Like anything else is staffing, because you know, you're a small full-time force, large on-call per diem force. You know, making sure you have enough help when the calls come in to respond. Excuse me. You know, budget's another one. You know, funding. As I tell vendors all the time, we're pinching pennies when we're stretching dollar bills, and you know, at some point they break. So and then when you get to that point, it's prioritizing to see, you know, versus, you know, the wants versus the needs, and just with the changing of the fire service. I mean, you know, right now the fire service is, you know, predominantly it's been going towards for a while, EMS, fire prevention, but I think there's other things coming down. This, you know, technical active shooter stuff is gonna be at our forefront. These type of the emergency management, I would say, the side of the fire department is gonna be challenging, you know, that we're gonna have to be really more engaged in. Just because of the way our world's, you know, society has changed and what we're faced with. I never thought I'd be buying bulletproof vests, you know, for the fire department. You know, if you had told me 30 plus years ago that someday you're gonna see a bulletproof vest on an ambulance with a helmet, I don't do guns. That's why I didn't choose to be a cop. Huh? You know, so police officer. But so those are the challenges that I see, not only in the coming year but the coming years. And as this, you know, it's continually evolving, and the community's growing. Just coming in off of 290, you know, there's a lot of development going on, and not just, you know, homes. You know, this new Target hazards coming into town as you speak. You know, so those are the challenges, and plus you got half the mall as well. It's another challenge, you know, because you share that with another community, and the department that you're sharing it with is a totally different staffing model than what you have here. So, you know, those continuous challenges as it evolves over the next 3 to 5 years.
So you talked about a staffing model. Could you see Berlin shifting it and getting to a larger full-time base and away from more volunteer or per diem people?
That's gonna be determined on basically what you're getting for a response and how, you know, the per diem staffing, the part-time, the on-call staffing is. If it's starting to diminish, then you're gonna have to start looking at that. But again, it goes back to the budget, monitoring it. If you're starting to see it, you know, no small community can afford to put on X amount of guys at once. But if you're starting to see that decline and nobody's knocking at the front door, you need to start chipping away at it a little bit at a time. And you're gonna see that through your numbers, response numbers over time. You'll be able to reflect on prior years. Because the more built, as your community grows, your responses are gonna increase. So that's the other thing you gotta manage. You don't wanna burn your people out, especially your call staff who's managing their careers, their families, and being part of the department.
Thank you.
Describe the research that you have done to learn about the town of Berlin Fire Department, and based on what you've seen here in Berlin or learned about the town and or the fire department, what are the top 3 actions you will take in your first 100 days?
So, excuse me, social media is, you know, it's a good thing. Been on the Facebook page and the town website. You know, recently and read the latest report that's on there, I believe 2018 for the fire department. Thank you. So, and looked at the website, the fire department website as well. So, kind of get some idea of the department, the makeup of the department, what they're doing for responses, what the department budget is. You know, just coming in off of 290 and, you know, coming down 495 a lot, using, you know, 62 as a cut through. You know, it's a community, it's a rural community, but it's starting to develop. And you're starting to see that commercial base grow. Didn't realize until recently that the mall was partially in town. You know, I didn't think it was in town, I thought it was in Marlboro, but just recently found that out. And you know, that's another Target has, and just that whole area has been. From a standpoint of the top first three things, I mean, the most important thing is getting to know the operation and the people, and how the town works. That's the first priority. Looking at, then also researching the trends of the last prior 5 years, and, you know, on a budget side as to what the, you know, how it's increased, and kind of see how that is, and, you know, reviewing the capital plan and looking at it going forward. And probably the most important thing is getting to know the people on the department, from the administration, the community, you know, because, you know, and anytime, you know, a town adds a new department head, especially, you know, a fire chief or a police chief, people want to know who he is. So there's going to be people, you know, they're going to be looking to introduce themselves to you, but but at the same time, you don't want to get to know them as much as they want to get to know you. So those would be the three priorities in the first 100 days.
Okay.
I have to shift the question a little bit because of your experience, but have you acted as a mentor, and who do you consider your support network as a fire chief?
Yep, I've done that. I've done that in the past, and I'm doing it now. One thing I found in this job, when I became a chief officer 9-10 years ago, you need to have that support network, because it's because of the rigors of the job. Not so much the physical demands as the administrative demands that can really weigh you down after a long day. I have friends that I talk to. They're not only friends, but they're colleagues of mine that are holding the same rank as that I've known for a long time. Just to bounce different ideas, just to kind of use them as a springboard. Hey, I'm dealing with this problem. What are your thoughts? This is kind of the direction I'm looking to go in. What do you think? You know, it's always, you've got to have that support network to succeed, because it's just because of the demands of the job nowadays. And, you know, because, and again, part of it is our society has changed. Within general, the way I was brought up is not the way, you know, you're dealing with the millennials. So you've got it's a whole different, you know, mindset that you have to adapt to. And, excuse me. So those are the things that you know, have helped me, you know, deal with that and to make good decisions. Because, you know, you can pick up the phone and talk to a colleague or a mentor, and they've dealt with something or similar, or they know somebody who's dealt with something similar to that, which is always a good thing. And I know the Fire Chiefs Association, they have a good network of mentors and also support, and that you can reach out to and get feedback from and spring stuff off of. Because, and just to add to that, because part of our job as officers, whether you're a lieutenant or the chief, is to you know, train the next guy for that position. That's part of it. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for a few people that, you know, took me under their wing and mentored me and trained, for lack of a better term, trained me the right way to look at the job, to do the job. So, because you always, whenever you go into a position, you always want to leave it better, a little bit better than what you found it. Not to say the position was bad, but you want to continue to grow and set it up better for the next person, and kind of identify the next person to go into that spot.
You mentioned, Fred, that when you come off the highway, that, you know, you can see that Berlin is moving away from a rural community
Mhm.
to a much more developing community, and we have townhouses and apartment buildings going up that have never gone up before, and we have new businesses coming in, and we have a fire marshal who stays very, very busy
Yep.
doing all these inspections. So what would be your role, your active role, in helping to perform inspections in town? And what are your plans to train the staff and ensure that there are more available resources to help with these fire inspection duties?
Well, I think, you know, as the chief, you know, you have the fire marshal, you know, and you're looking at him to handle that, but you also need to support him as well, and that means helping, going out, doing inspections, working with him to ensure that, you know, the inspections are getting done, and also to assist him with his workload. Because in his report, he said for the next 3 to 5 years, he's gonna be very busy, just because of the growth. And also identify within the department a couple of people that would be interested in going into fire prevention and kind of mentor them and train them. Whether it be sending them, to the fire academy, or just kind of, you know, training them in-house to learn to do some of these, to take some of the workload off. That's kind of how I look at it from that standpoint, but it's like anything else, you know. The chief has got to let his officers do their job, you know, and he's got to be able to support them, and that's kind of how I would look at it and focus on it. Support, you know, work with them, you know, and having the fire marshal has more knowledge of the town. It's probably the most one of the most knowledgeable people about the buildings, the layouts in the town, just because he's in them all the time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Peg?
I'm the one who always has like all the questions. Fred, we really don't know you at all.
No.
And I've Googled you and
Yeah.
looked up stuff about you, well, as anyone would do.
Absolutely.
So, can you talk to us and share us a little bit about your management and leadership style? You know, I asked the other candidate, are you the helicopter guy? Are you the hands-off guy? I mean, so how do you come in and manage an entirely new department, new town, new us?
Well, I think from a standpoint is, you know, I like, you know, you have officers in the department for a reason. So, you know, you let them do their job. You give them the goal. The job is for the chief, deputy chief, is to give the captains and lieutenants, the acting officers, firefighters, the tools to do the job. That's the most important thing. My leadership style is I would rather work with somebody than argue with them. I mean, nobody accomplishes anything. You know, I look at the department, each member of the department is a resource. They bring something to the table, whether it be a skill that they've learned through the fire academy, whether they've gone out and gotten their fire instructor one, or whether they bring a skill from their career, from the private sector, that can be applied to the department. You know, because instead of trying people to discredit and, you know, feed off of people's weaknesses, we are successful as a group when you feed off each other's strengths. And, you know, because nobody accomplishes anything when people are trying to discredit one another. Play the one-up game, the gotcha game, you know. We're all human beings, we all make mistakes. You learn from them. You know, it's, you know, I've made mistakes. I made mistakes as a firefighter, I've made mistakes as a lieutenant, as a deputy chief, as a chief. But I've learned from them, because we're all human beings, you know. And that's how I view things. I work together as a team. You know, communication, doors always open, come in. Anybody who knows me knows. When I feel like somebody's trying to undermine me, you won't get anything out of me. And that's not good for the organization. But if you're willing to work as a team, you want to work together, I'm in. Because it doesn't matter who's got the idea. It's that the idea is the right idea, or the right way. And you know what? You make a change and it doesn't work, you go back. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. you know? Because everybody has a view of the fire department. My view of the fire department is different than the private, because he's looking at, and I was there, why can't we do this, why can't we do that? Well, why? Well, when you're the chief, or a lieutenant, or a deputy, you've got other things to think about before you make those decisions. What's the financial cost? How is this gonna come back and jam me up down the road? You know, is it gonna be good for the department as a whole? Because you've gotta think about the whole department, not just an individual or a few individuals. So those are the important things that, you know, I kinda look at. You know, and that's what I promote. This is a team. The truck's not gonna do anybody any good sitting in front of somebody's house with the red lights on if nobody's around them, or there's only one guy on them. You're not gonna get anything done. You're gonna be waiting for more help, because fire trucks don't put out fires. Ambulances don't treat people. The people do. And that's the promotion of working together.
Final question from me. So I looked up your staff.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple names in my pocket.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call them when you leave.
sure.
What are they gonna tell me about you? And not the references that you gave. I'm gonna pluck 2 people off your staff. What are they gonna tell me about you when I ask? Because I'm gonna tell them that I told you, that I asked you if I could talk to them, and you told me I could, so. Mhm. See, you gotta throw that in there,
Oh,
so,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
no, what would they tell me about you as a leader, as a manager, as a part of the working team?
Well, I think first of all is I have a passion for the job. So it's the only full-time job I've ever had is being a firefighter. Dedicated. Spends a lot of hours at the fire station. Wants to work with people. That people wanna work. That people wanna work with me. When someone doesn't wanna work with me, I get very stubborn. And that's a proven fact. Because, and I get very stubborn when I feel someone's trying to undermine me or trying to make me look bad. That's a fact. So, because I don't believe in conducting myself that way. Because if they're looking out for their own personal gain, that's self-serving. I've worked hard to where I've gotten to. And I've spent a lot of time, and my family will tell you that. So that's what they may tell you when they say he doesn't talk, doesn't communicate. There's a reason why. Not because I just don't talk, because I'll sit in and talk until the cows come home, you know? You get tired of them listening to me. But those are the things I don't like, because it's not about self-serving. It's about the community, serving the community. This job's one of the most rewarding jobs is being able to help somebody. And it's in my opinion, it's been like this since I, saw a fire truck. It's the best job in the world. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it's the best job in the world, because you're helping people. If you look at our partners in public safety, we're the good guys. And no disrespect to them, because they gotta enforce laws. We go out and help people. Because when that person dials 911, we're there to help them, make it better. I mean, I've worked in on many times as an example, medical calls. Someone having difficulty breathing, someone excited, just going like this, putting their hand on them and starting to take a pulse. You see how much better they feel, because they're having the emergency. You're there to tell them everything's going to be okay. So, like I said, it's the best job in the world. When the police officer pulls up behind you, you're not having a good day. Let's face it. He's out there to introduce himself. So, but I think that's what they would say about me.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Just hope you don't pick the wrong two.
Well, there was quite the selection.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to find like most interesting name or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but no, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. And the other thing that I have nothing to hide. So.
facts.
Oh. So,
Never rained
Fred,
ever.
Mm.
I believe we're done with the questions
Okay.
from us. Do
Yep.
you have any questions for us
Yep.
or anything else you'd like to add?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak to you this morning. You know, it's something that you folks have to make a decision on to see who's going to be the best fit, you know, for the department going forward as you continue down the road. From that standpoint, I guess looking at it, probably the first question that comes to my mind is how would the department feel with an outsider coming in?
I think the highway is doing rather well. We chose an
Mhm.
outside candidate.
Yep.
Same with police.
Yep. They'll, you know, there may be a
I-
few issues, but I think,
I think sometimes you get more pushback from the community than you do
Mhm.
from the folks who are working
Mhm.
within the department, has been my impression. Is that
Mhm.
accurate?
Agreed.
Has the board reached out to any of the members individually in the department and kind of posed that question, how they would feel?
I asked
Yeah.
the current interim chief
Mhm.
if either he wanted any of the folks to be on either the screening committee
Yeah.
or talk to us. And he felt it was best to leave them kind of out of it, because it put them in an unfair situation to say, I want Sam, we hired Tom.
Right.
Word leaks that they wanted this one,
Sure.
so. But I mean, I've talked to the fire department over the past few weeks.
Mhm.
I had put forth a proposal to move us away from Strong Chief because some of the issues that we had had in the past.
Right.
And spent time talking to the folks down there, and they were kind enough and open enough to be honest with me and tell
Mhm.
me what was going on. They're all professional
Yeah.
down there, and they all know that this is the job that they need to do. As Lisa said, will there be bumps? I think
I'm
there'd be
sure, like,
bumps even
yeah.
if you brought in an internal
Oh,
candidate.
absolutely.
But-
I just, that's kind of a broad question as a whole, you
Mhm.
know, because I think the last thing you want to do is have a revolt, you know, from an, you know, if depending, you know, whatever decision you make, you
Agreed.
know, that, from that standpoint. You know, I guess the other question that I have is I see the town's growing. Well, what's the growth looking at? You know, just reading the, you know, the reports online and especially the fire marshal stating that he's gonna be busy for the next 3 to 5 years. It sounds like there's a lot on the docket, which in turn is gonna potentially increase your workload on a lot of different levels, you know, from responses to administrative work. What's the feeling from the board as far as, you know, as the town's growing to look at ways of, you know, assisting the fire department with more funding, you know, more staffing, more, you know, as you know, going forward.
Do you want to take
I
that?
believe the departments have done a pretty good job of forecasting what they need
Mhm.
and have brought that to the Board of Selectmen,
Mhm.
the Finance Committee,
Yep.
and Capital Planning. I think they've done a good job in looking at whether they need additional people. You know, we prefer, and I think the Finance Committee probably prefers that it be done slowly rather than,
Mhm.
you know,
Absolutely.
adding a lot of
Yeah.
people at one time so
Mhm.
that we can, you know, be able to afford it. And
Yeah.
then generally, it's up to the people
Right.
at town meeting to
Mhm.
vote.
I think historically, the board has been supportive of giving the fire department
Mhm.
what they need
Mhm.
to serve the community appropriately.
Yep. Is it, and to follow up on that, is the community very supportive of the fire department?
I think so. I would think so.
There's been issues.
Yeah,
There's
I-
been
I
issues
where
I
there's
don't think
been.
it's smooth.
No, it's
Mhm.
not smooth. I mean, there's been grumblings.
We need someone who's gonna promote the
Right.
fire department and maybe get out there and tell people more information.
Right.
I don't think they have all the information they need,
Mm-hmm.
and there may be generalizations that
Mhm.
And you have, I mean, the growth that you're talking about has led to growth in the fire department. And I don't know that, I think that's been difficult for some individuals, to see the town growing, and it's just another symptom of the town
Right.
growing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is something that you definitely have to be aware of and sort of talk about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People don't like change.
Some, it depends who you talk to. I
Yeah.
mean, we had fire, we had EMS,
Mhm.
and then we needed to do this, and
Right.
some people were like,
Yeah.
and others were like, you know, oh, well, they have this shiny new equipment, oh, well, we need to buy this shiny new equipment,
Yeah.
type of thing. And the nice thing about growth is that it doesn't happen overnight. I mean,
Right.
the ton of apartments that are going up, you know, on the west end of Berlin, yeah, they're gonna be there in a year or so,
Mhm.
but you can anticipate that growth. You
Right.
know, you've got another over 55 community
Mhm.
going up towards the Bolton line. You're gonna anticipate that community,
Mhm.
that growth. So it would give everybody, with our new town administrator, as Lisa had talked about, you know, the overview to see where we're going, what are we doing? Oh, if we bring in 100 bazillion people, how many more firefighters do we need? How many
Right.
more EMS do we need? How many more police do we
Mhm.
need? To start to look at that. And as you said, present it with the information to the
Mhm.
public.
Right.
So when you stand up and say, my budget needs to increase by 80,000%, and people fall to the floor and you guys are fixing them during the town meeting. But you say, this is why,
Mhm.
boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom. Then people will be like, oh, so you're not buying just something new and shiny.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly that process has already started of managing that growth as it goes
Right.
forward. It's not like these apartments have been on the books for
A while.
a while,
Mhm. Yeah.
so, you know, that shift has started to take place in
Mhm.
both public safety areas.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else?
No, I don't think so at this time. Just again, thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
Very nice meeting you all.
Nice
You
to
too.
meet you
Thank
too.
you.
Safe travels back.
Yeah, thank you.
Get up there before the traffic starts.
Yeah.
This is not a great, not a great day to be on the road.
Mhm.
Thank you. Nice
Thank
meeting
you so much.
Take care.
Okay. Discussion. This is a difficult decision.
Mhm.
Two good candidates. We care to talk about one candidate and then the other, or?
I guess
Don't
I'm-
make that suggestion like you
No,
did
No,
with the
I'm not
TA.
no,
doing
we're
that.
not 1,
I'm
2,
not doing
3.
that.
We're not
I'm
1,
just-
2, 3 like last time.
I'm looking at this and it seems like we're in a similar position as to when we were doing interim chief, because you have that extreme contrast between candidates.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you have someone, Fred, who has been a chief,
is a chief.
is a chief, and has budget experience, and has been working with the town administrator, and is up on the floor, and is talking to people, and has been merging departments together, you know. But you also have Jamie, who kind of got thrust into that position and has done a good job and has learned on the go, you know, with budgets and with other issues. So, I mean, you can make a case for either candidate.
Yep.
I guess one of the questions I would ask is what do we think that the department needs right now?
Yep.
Do they need a Jamie or do they need a Fred?
I think it would be helpful to have someone who has a little bit more experience as a chief. Experience with a budget. Fred talked about being a team several times.
As did Jamie.
Yes.
Working relationships. I mean, I compare.
Both were talked about mentoring in a positive way, which I appreciate that.
I mean, I went through the job descriptions and put up the resumes and just did like a match for match for match.
Mhm.
Well, I think there was one that both of them needed to have, but the timeline was given within, you know, a year for that. I mean, you look at Fred's resume and it's just loaded with committees and certificates of attendance and his education, and I'm glad I didn't print this at home. So, I mean, the fire department's been through a lot of changes. You know, do you need someone who has had that experience to come in and continue to lead them through these experiences, or do you have someone who has kind of lived and breathed it for the past 5 years? It's
I'm not sure it's fair to put someone into their first position as chief into our department. I'm not sure that's,
At this time.
yeah, at this time, I'm not sure that's fair to Jamie. But, I mean, I think he brings a wealth of enthusiasm. I think
Hmm.
he's going to be a wonderful chief.
I agree. This may not be the time.
So I know he's currently the interim, so he is the captain, or one of the captains,
Mm-hmm.
but we currently don't have a deputy, correct?
No.
Because,
Yeah. Which is another thing, I think if we had a strong deputy
Deputy.
under there, I would be more comfortable, but, yeah.
Well, one thing that Fred did say was he thinks it's a good idea to mentor those in the department so that there is someone who can move up in
yeah,
the line of command.
I like that too. I mean, he made one comment, that you leave it better than when you found it.
Right.
Yeah, that was we had a family cabin, that was our rule. You know, when you use the cabin, you
You
leave
leave
it
it.
better than,
When you found it.
Mm-hmm. All right, ladies, anything else? Looking through my notes.
I know, I'm trying to compare mine, side to side.
It was nice that both suggested that we need an open house.
And I mean, they both hit on that they need to educate the town regardless of what's going on, whether it's, you know, simple things of change your batteries, do this, you know, have forums to, yeah, you know, to Lisa's question, you make the decision, and sometimes it's not the correct decision as some people in town would think. You're gonna have it split. Spot on, totally egregious, oh, didn't know that. And both seem very willing to be like, you know what, you gotta educate, you gotta get that out there. I mean, so I like that. It was nice to hear that from both candidates.
Right. I think both candidates agreed there'd be no toleration for harassment.
No,
And the problems they see with Berlin is the staffing. There was a lot of similarities, but, I mean, there were just a few differences.
agreed. Yeah, and the challenges were remarkably almost spot on. Both of them
Mm.
came up with staffing.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'm gonna motion that we negotiate with Fred Mitchell.
Okay, Fred Mitchell for EMS fire chief and contingent upon negotiations.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second? I'll second that. All right. Is there anything else to be said?
Yeah, the only other option is we had two candidates. If we are not comfortable with either of the two, then the other option is to restart the search, which a lot of communities have done. So just throwing that out there, I see horror, but I wanted to make sure
that was panic.
you're aware that that was on the table.
Yes,
No,
that is
absolutely.
the other option.
Well, no, and besides too, I'm concerned that if we dilly, then, and there's other opportunities for chief positions out there, that both of them bolt, and then we're really in a bind.
Mm-hmm. Because I think that they're few and far between.
Correct. I mean, and both had indicated too, that this isn't gonna be like a dump and run. They're not gonna be here for, 1, 2, 3 years and be like, see ya, bye. Both had indicated that they're in it for the long term, which is what we need, I think, to steady the ship and to right the ship, is that you need someone there who's gonna wanna be there. And so we've gotta say, it's our job to set whomever that up, Jamie or Fred, Jamie and Fred, and the other members of the department, to make sure that we do our job to make sure that they're okay. Okay.
All right. Anything else? You ready for a vote?
Ready for a vote?
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
It is unanimous.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Do we get together to talk about
We need to-
contract
yeah,
issues?
we-
We have to go into executive
We have to
session
go
now.
into executive session. I want to hear from you all what the parameters are.